Well, I think it's obvious by this intro that the Zenos is up and running, baby. I couldn't be more excited. It was honestly the easiest solution to get her back on the road. If I've learned any lesson, it's check the small things first. I was working on it maybe a little over a week ago and have been a little busy doing some other things. Well, you'll see in a few seconds what I've done. A couple recommendations if you're going into the battery compartment, as well as a few ideas on how to waterproof your electrical system moving forward. Let's check it out. I just brought it back to the house last night. I'm starting to diagnose some of the issues I was having on the journey. As it seems, it's electrical. The first place I'm going to start is the most obvious sign, which is the battery. I tested it when it was inside the door panel at the passenger footwell, and it tested just fine. However, I did want to take it out, look at some lines, and also the battery tie down was a little bent, so I wanted to fix that as well. To save you all probably 30 to 45 minutes worth of time, I need to show you something that I've been sitting here messing with and that you need to be aware of before you start removing the battery. If you're looking at the interior of the car, the battery sits, once again, in the passenger footwell. Two things to note before diving in. Beneath the two bolts that hold the battery tied down are two aluminum spacers that you can see right here. I encourage you, before loosening those bolts all the way, to get a firm grasp on those spacers. What kept happening was, as soon as I'd remove the bolt, they would fall in behind the inside door panel. It's not as easy as it looks to pull that door panel due to one pop lock that's in between the seat and the outer skin. It's said that you can pull that door panel with the seat inside, but it was very, very difficult, quite a struggle, and I would not encourage you to do the same thing I did. Although I saved them when pulling the battery out, putting them back in was a different story. Pro tip with the battery, put the bolt in with the spacer very, very loose, and you should be able to slide that battery in, slide the tie down on top, and then tighten everything up. Okay, in regards to the battery, I also wanted to give another pro tip. So here's the battery all wired up. Of course, I have a trickle charger, waterproof connection that I leave in here so I can keep the battery fresh. You got your two connection points on top of the battery. That's obvious. You have your battery tied down that hooks into this particular Odyssey battery. I don't know if this was the factory battery in the United States or not. Obviously, this is a very high-end battery. I'll have to do some digging there, but the fact that this tie down fits directly into this slot is great, but kind of odd, if you ask me, because not all batteries have that. Here are the two bolts I was referring to with the aluminum spacers and luckily captive nuts. I was concerned about that diving into this, that I would lose the nut behind this panel, which is where they kept dropping. I attempted to use a, I believe it was a 5.5, I think it was a 5.5 Allen head or Allen key on that bolt, but it was somewhat difficult to get any real momentum with that, if you will. What I will show you is this tool that goes on the end of a smaller ratchet is extremely useful for tight spaces. I bought this a while back for another vehicle, and you can just get these different bits. Let me see if I can focus, for various drivers to put into this mini ratchet, if you will. This does obviously come off as a separate piece. And there you have it. And then it'll hold any screwdriver bit that you can find. And what's great about this is the outside is textured, so it allows you to get a pretty good grasp with your fingers in the event that there's not enough room to use the ratchet, or in terms of starting or finishing a bolt. It just makes it that much easier. So definitely get you one of these if you're ever doing battery work on this. Super helpful. And I did want to confirm exactly what size that particular bolt is, and I was right, it is a 5.5. As a reminder, I got caught in a rainstorm. The car completely died and shut down, even with the top on, albeit it was after a little rain had gotten into the cabin. I had no power, I had no hazards, I had nothing. But the problem is most people want to blame the start-stop switch for the car. Although that's probably keen on getting wet and a potential issue that I need to address long-term, luckily, after 3 days of being stranded, it was the easiest thing that I could have found. So, with that said, I disconnected the battery. I started with the battery first, make sure the voltage was good, all was well. I disconnected it just to ensure that nothing else weird could happen while I was trailering the vehicle. And once I put it back together, I heard that relay click. Pop! Sounded just like this. That is with the master kill switch, which I thought was faulty and the cause of the problem. Once I did that, I saw that my start-stop now has power. And then what you're about to see is the start-stop procedure. To start a Zenos, first you have to provide power from the battery to the rest of the vehicle via the master switch. Remember, this is an open cockpit car, and therefore there are some security features built in. Once the power is established, you'll press 1 on your immobilizer or key fob, which will allow the start-stop button to light up, letting you know that the car does have power and that you're clear to engage the vehicle. A quick tap of the start button lights up the 2 screens on the car. I think the dual screens is quite a neat feature. The secondary screen also allows your passenger to see what's going on. There are multiple modes for street driving, track driving, etc. that provides oil temp, boost, pressure, obviously fuel level, RPM, speed, things of that nature. It only does take a quick second to cycle through the screens. However, I am playing this back slower than normal. Once the screens are fully lit up and ready, you can press the clutch and brake and start button one more time to engage the motor itself. Here you'll want to hold the button down, not just a simple press. And she will fire to life. I wanted to highlight here too that if you look at the various switches on the driver's side door panel, as well as the master switch in the center console and the start-stop button in the center console, they are all on horizontal surfaces. It's not that this car was ill-prepped or created in a cheaper fashion, although they did build these to a certain price point. It's that they're simply horizontal and the vehicle has no roof. Naturally, when water gets into the cockpit and drains down, if those wires are sitting in standing water, such as on the aluminum spine or inside the door panel, you're going to have electrical issues. So how can we help further address that? Well, one is to change out the switches to all waterproof switching with a mil-spec harness. But the other is to address one of the larger concerns of the fuse box, which is housed directly under this dashboard. Let's take a look. Okay, so I have 2-gallon Ziploc bags and a little bit of duct tape. I'm gonna set this down with one hand. It's a little bit difficult, and hop in just like any ambidextrous, limber person would. Let me flip my light over here so you can see what we're working with. So up under the passenger footwell is the fuse box. It's only held up there by one strap in the back, as you can see there, just a simple click strap, kind of a nice feature. And then it will fold down to your feet, just like that. That's how you're gonna check all your fuses. If you need a list on the fuse configuration, let me know, I still have it. Although if you search very deeply, you can find it as well. Biggest thing, we have the 2 mains up here and all of the smaller amperage fuses and relays for every aspect of this vehicle. I'm not entirely sure how water could even get into this box, other than the fact that it can potentially drip down in a heavy rain behind the dash and down onto the back side of the box itself. There's also, for the immobilizer, if your car has one, which I believe all Zenos cars have them, but don't quote me on that. It's located up, around and behind this box, and they're known for corrosion, especially if you're in very salty climate weather areas. So with that said, I'm gonna pause this and come back in just a second. So here's my double bag. I have one inside the other so they don't rip. And I'm simply, with one hand, because I'm holding the camera, gonna slide this up, this fuse box. 1 second. We're gonna slide it as high up as we can, taking care to cover as much as we can before attempting to seal the bag in any way or by any means necessary. Shout out to Complete Home, fantastic bags. I'm relying on you to keep this car in one piece. Cool. So I'm gonna put a little tape around the top to help further seal it, but make it easy to pull back off when I need to. And then after that is done, we'll simply push this back up, re-strap it in place, and hopefully that will be far more weatherproof than it was from the factory. Hope this helps.